And today is an important day for us, the webinar series, because it is on our 50th webinar series. The main aim of this webinar is to promote mental health and well-being among people during this COVID-19 crisis. Today, this is our principal, Dr. Dhavamani Christopher is here for delivering the greeting note. And today's session is about physiology of emotions. We had a session with Helen Christina Madam. There are many participants over here requested us to have few more sessions on biology of emotions. I asked, ma'am, can you do few more sessions? Immediately after the request, ma'am accepted our request and she is here with us for the 15th webinar session. Ma'am, I welcome you on behalf of the Department of Psychology, American College, on behalf of members and volunteers and participants for this session. Sir,
thank you, Suresh.
Sir, I welcome our principal, Dr. Dhavamani Christopher, to give the greeting note to the participant as well as the person here. Sir.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you, sir.
Dear all, good evening. This is Christopher, principal of American College and the department in charge, psychology department in charge. The Department of Psychology, the American College Madurai, we initiated a mental health webinar series 2020 with an objective to promote mental health and well-being among people during the post-COVID-19 crisis. I am happy to see a lot of support from the participants and media for our initiative. Minimum of 100 participants from each session and about 57 sessions so far. Today it is 109 participants, 111 participants now for the 50th program, and likewise we have conducted 50 program. So it is, if it is 100 means 15 to 100, it is amazing result. It is 5,000 in total. It's great success for the Department of Psychology, the American College. And also the experts are from various countries like United States of America, Spain, Russia, Singapore, Switzerland, and Czechoslovakia, Poland, and German, and many other countries. And also 5,000 with many talented experts. It's a great success. In this juncture, I would like to congratulate the Department of Psychology, the coordinator of the program, Dr. Suresh, and the volunteer members of Mental Health Webinar Series 2020 on its 50th webinar session. And special wishes to Dr. Helen Christina, professor in the Department of Zoology, Sri Meenakshi Government College, and well-wisher of the department and the college. And on my own behalf, and I wish all of you best of luck. God bless. I will watch you through the session.
Thank you, sir.
You please continue.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ma'am, you can, I will share your screen, ma'am, just a minute.
Yeah. Do you have the PowerPoint, Suresh?
Yes, ma'am, it is with me. Just a minute. Yes, ma'am, you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And good evening, participants. It's a happy moment to meet you all once again for this topic on physiology of emotions. The other day we were talking about emotional intelligence, and Suresh called me to talk something more related to the human system. So here I'm happy, but it's going to be a little bit complex. Anyway, I'll try my best to make it as simple as possible. Next slide, Suresh. So here you can see a colorful picture of a woman. And may I request all the participants to close their eyes for a few moments and find out what color do you see? What color do you perceive? May I request all the participants to close your eyes for a few seconds And what color flashes into your mind immediately? Okay, can anyone answer?
Ma'am, for me, yellow color.
Red, ma'am.
Yellow? Red?
Red and yellow.
Blue. For me, yellow.
Pink.
Red and yellow. Okay.
For me, yellow.
Else?
Pink color. Red.
Yeah, okay, red.
Black.
Yellow, ma'am.
Pink color.
Purple and green.
Yellow, madam.
Purple and
Ma'am, I could not see anything, ma'am. It was totally dark.
okay, thank you.
Ma'am,
Thank you
purple
so
and
much.
pink.
Purple and pink. That's nice. And thank you for your response. We will move into the session. Why I ask this question is we relate the emotions with some colors, because colors play a major role in life. Anyway, what has colors to do with emotions for the present context of this topic? Right. Next slide, Suresh. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Can you able to see the slides, ma'am?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I can see. Thank you. Right. So usually emotions are a kind of feeling where you react to a situation which is meaningful or important to us. Usually emotions are based on an important situation or a meaningful situation. Sometimes we express our emotions in the form of feeling, which is expressed again in the form of a different body language. The third one is we use emotions to compete with other things. Right. So this session will have two parts. We will discuss in brief about the anatomy and functions of the brain as a whole. And in the second part, we will discuss about what each part or each lobe of the brain has to do with the emotions. And the third part will have how the nervous system and the hormones related to the behavior and emotions interact with each other. So now we are looking at a part of the brain which has two hemispheres. One is the right hemisphere or the right brain. The other one is the left hemisphere or the left brain. So as you see there, you can see the right brain is responsible for emotions, intuition, spirituality, interpersonal skill, art and music, belief and big picture. To put it in simple words, we recognize faces. We recognize relationships. We differentiate known and unknown people. We express emotion. We understand what other emotions others have. We create music. We appreciate color. We use imagination. We try to be creative. These are all related with the right brain. Mostly it is called as an emotional brain. So usually we respond or react based on the chemical changes that happens in the right brain. And if you see the left brain, it has logic. It is responsible for logic, analysis, organization, administration, maths, knowledge, facts, detail, and all that. And generally the left brain is called as a logical brain or the rational brain. We usually use the right brain to respond or react, as I stated earlier, and we rarely use the left brain to rationalize whether the functioning of the right brain is right or not. Okay, next slide. So this is the difference between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. So next one, this slide I think we have probably seen in the previous talk, where the importance of the midbrain is been explained well. So the midbrain has four parts: thalamus, hypothalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. This is the midbrain, which lies between the temporal lobes. We will see in the next slide. So in between the temporal lobes, And this midbrain will interact with the cerebral cortex, form certain emotions, and it is sent via the brainstem. This brainstem is connected with the autonomic nervous system and central nervous system. And this brainstem again is responsible for bringing information from the external environment. And this information is processed in the midbrain, as we see here: hypothalamus, thalamus, amygdala, hippocampus. And this midbrain interact with other lobes of the brain. So this information which is received from the outer is called as the sensory stimulus. After processing the information, the sensory stimulus will send motor responses again through the nervous system, where a body or a part of the body will react to the stimuli as it is received. So we can see that I perceive something. There is a notion called event, right? So I see something, I hear something, I smell something. It creates a thought in my mind, and this thought in turn induces a emotion or a feeling inside me, and that again induces a behavior. So thought or cognition, feeling, and behavior are interrelated. Fine. Next slide, Suresh. Here, this is a little bit complicated structure of the brain. If you see carefully, the brain has 4 lobes. One is the frontal lobe, which is in the front part. Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Please continue. We can hear you, ma'am.
Okay. So the first one is...
I can hear you.
Okay, because I could hear some noise, and that's why. Okay, the first one is the frontal lobe in front, the front portion. And hello? The next part is the parietal lobe. The third one is the temporal lobe, which is present on the sides of both the ears. And at the back, you can see the occipital lobe. Right, here I can tell you with colors. The red color is the frontal lobe. The green part is the temporal lobe. You can see on the sides of your ears, on both sides. And the parietal lobe, according to the number 12, 3, and 9. 3, 9, and 12 together they constitute the parietal lobe. And at the back, a dark blue color, you can see the occipital lobe. These are the 4 lobes of the brain. And in the second diagram, you can see a green color, which is contributing the midbrain. As we saw in the previous slide, it has again hypothalamus, thalamus, hippocampus, and amygdala. Now you can see the midbrain interacts with all part or all lobes of the brain: frontal, occipital, parietal, and the temporal lobes. Right. So now we are going to see how this midbrain, or the chemicals or the neurotransmitters or otherwise the hormones synthesized in the midbrain induces an emotion. Okay. So this frontal lobe is responsible for creating your happiness, disgust, or anger. There are some major emotions. So we will see the lobes. So frontal lobe is again, the left part of the frontal lobe is responsible for creativity, judgment, problem solving, and planning. The right frontal lobe is responsible for emotions, reasoning, movement, and it distinguishes language or expression of language. Right. And the second one is the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is responsible for fear, probably. It can also bring out nerve impulses related to touch, pain, taste, pressure, and all that. This is parietal lobe is responsible for creating all these responses. The third one is the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is responsible for hearing, memory, interpretation of languages and body languages. Here I mean verbal and non-verbal communication. And temporal lobe is also very important in emotion and learning. The occipital lobe again is responsible for, it's again at the back of the brain, it receives information through vision. And again, this occipital lobe, based upon the image perception, it induces some somatosensory responses in the body. So these are the 4 lobes of the brain. Okay. So we are now moving into the important part where I can give a brief account on how these parts function. For example, I said about frontal lobe, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobe. There is cerebellum, which has a light brown in color. This cerebellum is responsible for the balance or the movement, posture, and coordination of all these things. So cerebellum, together with the limbic system, will create a stature or the behavior or the responses. And the cerebellum is also called as an emotional brain. Now coming to the thalamus. The thalamus is responsible again. Hello. So thalamus receives sensory information and it processes it and sends it to the cerebral cortex. Again, hypothalamus, it is responsible for emotions like hunger, thirst, appetite, digestion, maintaining the sleep cycle. So hypothalamus. And you can see one more important thing there, a pituitary gland. A pituitary gland and a pineal gland, which is a round body embedded in the midbrain. So pituitary gland is the master gland that controls the hormones. So we will see what are all the hormones that is responsible for the emotions. So without the function of the pituitary gland, even though I try to develop some kind of emotional intelligence, until there is a proper physiological response from the body, it is very hard to maintain an emotional balance. That is what we are going to see here now in this about in 30 minutes. Oh, so as I said, I'm sorry, the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe is responsible for happiness. This is called as the feeling center. Amygdala is also called as the feeling center. So frontal lobe is responsible for creating moods like happiness, disgust, and anger. And fear, it is responsible as a reaction of or the processing of amygdala, hypothalamus, and frontal. And sadness, again, it is a feeling. It is associated with the occipital lobe. And surprise, sometimes we get surprised, anxious, and sometimes we fall into guilt feeling. And these are all created with the coordination of the midbrain. Again, I say thalamus, hypothalamus, amygdala, and the hippocampus together in coordination with all these 4 lobes. The midbrain with the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes with the influence of hormones synthesized from the pituitary gland will end up in emotion processing and expression. Now you're seeing that there are 7 ways that hormones affect your brain. And we will discuss that 8 important hormones that is responsible for determining the emotions and the outcome behavior. Right. So emotions are not really made of anything. It is actually only a perceived thing. But how we feel the emotion, I can describe what I feel inside. But these emotions come from the arousal of a nervous system. There are millions of chemical reactions that takes place in the brain for each and every emotion. Even though we experience a lot of emotion, but within a split second, we decide which emotion to express, right? So before moving into this, I would like to ask a question to all the participants here. Recently, there is an issue in Delhi where a group of adolescent boys were discussing in a public forum about raping a girl, right? What do you think about it? Can any 2 or 3 participants answer? Can I have answer from 2 or 3 participants? What's your, yeah.
This is Ushashri here. Could you please explain your question a little bit more? That is, what do you think about in what aspect, ma'am?
Okay, so we were talking about emotions, right? Emotions
Yeah.
and hormones.
Yeah.
We are talking about emotions and hormones. So,
Yes, ma'am.
considering these 2 points,
Yeah.
how do you view this issue that's happening in Delhi now? That a group of boys, their issue and problem, their behavior, which has been critically analyzed in all the social media.
All right, ma'am. Please give me 1 minute to think.
Any other participant could answer? Hello, your voice is breaking.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
excuse me, ma'am. Can you hear me,
yeah,
ma'am?
please.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I can hear you.
It's based on the interpreting the situation based on the experience. So definitely they would have some experience. They are trying to do a rape and also based on the interpreting the situation based on the experience. That is number 1. And number 2
Okay.
is they are trying to arouse their arousal of body behavior, ma'am.
Okay.
So in that format, they are trying to rape a girl, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Any other answer?
It's like a stimulus,
Hello.
ma'am.
Hello,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes.
Dear participant, please mute one by one. Then hello.
Participants, please raise your hands.
Veena, just take over, please.
Participants could raise their hands. Probably any one of the hosts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kindly raise your hands to answer as well.
Yes,
Please.
Mr. Haran.
And rest, please keep your mics in.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, about this issue about the boys' locker room, which you are mentioning there. So these people belongs to a school people. I mean, school students who did this thing. So here, probably they belong to the adolescent age. So adolescent is a period we know about majorly about the growth spurt. So which the boys generally they have the excess secretion of testosterone. So when we speak about emotions and hormones, I strongly hope that testosterone is a very important thing which increases the influence of this behavior.
Okay.
So this influence behavior is because of this hormone, which makes them to do risk-taking behaviors and which leads them to sexual arousal, such like that.
Okay. Okay.
That's
So what's your judgment? Is this
so
right?
I hope this is because of the teenage and lack of guidance in teenage.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, participants. Anyway, as psychologist, yeah, yes.
Ma'am, Ushashri wants to answer.
Yeah.
Ushashri, yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Ma'am, thank you for giving me time of 1 minute to think. I think from the emotional side, it's the lack of parental love and support. And from the hormone side, as a person said just before me, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding his name. It's the hike of testosterone. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anyway, we'll go into the session. Okay, fine. Okay, as you all rightly answered and perceived, emotions are typically measured by the physical responses. And we usually see the expressed behavior. And usually psychologists and counselors, they try to understand what is actually happening based on the expressed behavior. But where we lack is, as you rightly pointed here, the coordination between the hormones, the age, and the external stimuli that induces a person to live in a harmonious life is the biggest question here. So, we all receive a lot of chemical reactions in the body. We know that there are synapses, the functional gap between the neurons that transmit certain neurotransmitters, and these neurotransmitters take a message to the brain, and brain process it, especially the midbrain, and along with pituitary, it produces a lot of hormones, and these hormones determine the emotion and behavior of an individual. And now we will see in brief how these hormones, sex hormones and other hormones, influences emotion and the relevant behavior. So as you see here, the first one, there is thyroidism, and we are not going to talk much about it. I think probably we can come with that in another session. And the first one is the estrogen. We all know that the female sex hormone, there are two, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is considered to be important in female reproduction, and it is also called as a positive mood hormone. It is synthesized, even though synthesized from the ovary, the pituitary influences by synthesizing some inducing hormones. And estrogen, you can see it is responsible not only for the reproduction, it is the potent agent of creating mood disruptions in women. Whenever there is a higher synthesis of estrogen, or as you see in the biochemical name, it has different names, estrone, estradiol, and estriol. We may not go into the biochemical part, but it is a steroid that is linked with the behavior of women, especially during their reproductive cycle. So estrogen imbalance during the premenstrual cycle, or when in case of a menopausal period, or in a postpartum condition, it moves, pushes a woman into a kind of a dysphoric disorder or a depression or anxiety. And that is why girls in pubertal age, as we see a pre-pubertal or in the pubertal age from 11 to 17 probably, and after the age of 40, these two category of, I would say girls and women, they end up in a lot of mood fluctuation because there is imbalance in the synthesis of estrogen. So estrogen, once again, I would like to insist, it doesn't function alone, but it performs its function along with another hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is responsible for the process of ovulation, and it is also called as a calming hormone. So estrogen and progesterone has a kind of contradictory function. Estrogen it is actually excitatory effect on brain, but progesterone has a calming effect. And that is why after the age of 40, when women enter into the menopausal period, it should be understood that a kind of negative imbalance between these hormones will induce a lot of mood disruptions, depression, anxiety, insomnia, migraine. These are the common issues in women due to the imbalance of these two hormones. Even though progesterone is synthesized from the ovaries, a part called corpus luteum, soon after the ovum is released from the ovary, it is for a temporary period. Progesterone is for a temporary period, but estrogen is always there, interacting with other hormones, right? So progesterone and estrogen together, when they activate the female mood system, how they activate is actually they bind with a receptor in the brain cell, which is called as gamma aminobutyric acid receptor, which is a binding site in the brain cell. And this is actually responsible for the process of relaxation and sleep. Whenever the gamma receptor is in full activation, normal sexual cycle or normal sleep pattern will be inhibited. The function of the progesterone is to bind with these gamma receptors, inhibit the function of gamma receptors so that the mind goes into a sleep mode. So it means that whenever a woman after the age of 40 or even below that, whenever a woman continuously feels her sleep cycle is not good, or whenever the individual is unable to relax, it is because the imbalance between the synthesis of estrogen and progesterone and the inability of progesterone to bind with the gamma receptors of the brain cell inhibit its action, inducing relaxation and sleep. And in yesterday, Dr. Jayanti's sessions, one participant was asking one question. And she said that she was unable to cope up with her household work and feeling very tired. And Dr. Jayanti answered her that she has to live for herself. And here is the problem. This is the actual problem which has to be addressed, where whenever I don't get proper sleep or whenever I don't get proper relaxation in my life, I tend to behave in an aggressive manner. I get anxiety, I don't get proper sleep, I get migraines, and all these problems will come. So this is about estrogen and progesterone. Moving to the male sex hormone or the testosterone, again, it is having the as effect as the female hormone. Testosterone is, as we know, it increases bone mass, muscle building, muscle strength, and energy level. And it is important for regulating the emotion. Testosterone is very important in maintaining the emotional regulation by communicating between the prefrontal brain and the amygdala. You can see, apart from this, the testosterone is also responsible for mental sharpness and mental clarity, which means that it induces the function of the left brain. Right brain, as we see, the emotional brain or the emotional part will always function. But hello? Hello? Okay. So testosterone is crucial for maintaining the mental sharpness and mental clarity, where estrogen and progesterone plays a major role as that of the testosterone, right? So this is about the sex hormones, and testosterone is synthesized from the testicles of men, right? So apart from these sex hormones, can I have the next slide, Suresh, please? Okay. So this is the basics of happy hormones. You see there are 4 hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. So we will see one by one how it is synthesized and how it interacts, or how it induces the brain to have a complete life. And I have an exercise for all the participants. Can I hear a roar of laughter? That's nice, Krishnan sir. Anyone else? Can I hear a roar of laughter? Suresh, probably can you try? Suresh, is he here? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Suresh, can you try a roar of laughter? Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. I think I will.
Yes. See, you're smiling. I want a roar of laughter.
I think I'm good in smile, ma'am.
You're good at smile? Okay, fine. And is Veena there?
Yes. Veena, Dr. Veena.
Can I hear a roar, a thunder of laughter from
Oh
you?
my God. Yes, ma'am, you could hear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, imagine last session, you will laugh now.
Okay. Right.
Yes,
My question is to Krishnan sir. How you felt soon after you laughed like anything?
I felt, it's a sense of achievement I had. So, I could respond immediately. So
Okay.
I didn't have, I felt that, that's no inhibition I had. So,
Yeah, exactly. So without any inhibition, you responded immediately. And what about Suresh?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable at right now, man. Maybe sometime, some other time.
Okay. Okay. So you need some special time to laugh.
No.
See, now you can make a laughter. Right. Veena, can you answer?
ma'am, I always feel like it is giving out some positive vibe because
Okay.
smile is always, laughter is always contagious.
Okay. Okay, nice. Thank you. Right. So we will see the basics of happy hormones here. Dopamine, number one, it is called as a motivation and reward chemical. Dopamine is actually a neurotransmitter that is released from the hypothalamus. Dopamine is responsible for focusing of thoughts, attention, memory, goal-oriented behavior, muscle control, and ovulation. So as we see earlier, dopamine is probably a co-hormone with the estrogen. And it is also responsible for alert behavior, reproducing memory, maintaining thoughts, coherent thoughts, and happiness and vigilant behavior. As I said earlier, alert and vigilant behavior. So the thought process, whenever there is a good concentration of dopamine, I am able to use my left brain rationally. So balance of dopamine along with estrogen or with testosterone will rationalize whether a roar of laughter can give me happiness or not. Right, this is one small example. Low levels of dopamine may cause depression, impulsive behavior, frequent mood swing, lack of memory, lack of thinking process, inability to process a particular thought, attention deficiency, compulsive behavior, craving for something, loss of satisfaction or contentment in life, all these things. So low levels of dopamine for a longer duration of time may cause schizophrenia, may cause. And dopamine, as I said, it is a motivation and a reward chemical. So regarding the reward system, higher level of dopamine can cause addictive behavior, suspicious personality, and possibly a paranoia-like behavior. And this dopamine, for the good information, even though you cannot directly get dopamine from the food source, but there are two amino acids that is related with dopamine, tyrosine, and phenylalanine. Again, it is rich in milk, cheese, eggs, and all the nuts, almonds, your cashew, walnut, and all that. If you see walnut, it resembles the structure of the brain, and that's why walnut and almonds are proper food resources that are responsible for inducing the synthesis of these hormones. Right, I think I'm deviating from the topic and I'll come back to this. So dopamine is a motivation and a reward chemical. And apart from this, you can see here, dopamine is responsible for motivation, concentration, movement, learning, exhilarating behavior, and contentness or happiness, right? And the second one is the serotonin. Serotonin is again a happiness hormone, and serotonin is also synthesized from hypothalamus And serotonin is responsible for arousal of mood, aggressive behavior. It improves thinking ability and recollecting your memory. So right level of serotonin is relaxation. The right level of serotonin will cause a relaxing mood, and sometimes a mood can be uplifted with the increased concentration of serotonin. Again, serotonin, dopamine, or whatever it is, there should be a balance. Excess synthesis of serotonin may cause a kind of sedative or a sluggish, lazy-like behavior, a lack of motivation to achieve something, lack of motivation to perceive a goal, poor appetite control. It may cause anxiety disorder, again, antisocial behavior and sexual problems. And if you see anxiety disorder or impulsivity or mood disorder, this actually causes a disturbance in the sleep-wake cycle. And if there is a disturbance in the sleep-wake cycle, naturally, individuals tend to fall into depression in a longer duration of time, where there may be eating disorders. The individual may experience chronic pain, even though there is not actually pain. It is a perceived pain. So since there is eating disorder, the person may land up in obesity sometimes. Sometimes there may be low intake of food, and there may be loss of weight also. So serotonin, a happy hormone, which is responsible for mood arousal, it improves thinking ability and recollecting memories, right? So serotonin, as I said, it is synthesized from the hypothalamus and other parts of the brain as well. And the next one is oxytocin. Oxytocin is considered to be the bonding hormone or the love hormone. Whenever there is higher synthesis of oxytocin, the express behavior is dilation of pupil. Have you ever seen a newborn baby, in a 3 months old baby, who smiles at the mother on seeing her? So it is due to the excess synthesis of oxytocin, and oxytocin along with prolactin induces the synthesis of mother's milk. Whenever there is imbalance in prolactin and oxytocin, women in the post-delivery period may not have enough mother's milk, which is having higher antibodies. And now in this present situation of COVID-19, one relevancy is that whoever has given the proper breast milk or mother's milk will have good immune system. Probably there is possible relationship between oxytocin, emotional behavior, and the immune system of an individual, right? So oxytocin, bonding hormone or the love hormone, it has several names here. It is responsible, it induces a communication skill, and it improves self-esteem. And this oxytocin actually determines pro-social behavior, and it gives a satisfaction in the sexual life of an individual, right? So deficiency of oxytocin may cause pathophysiology conditions like depression, anxiety, fear, disturbed sleep, and irritability. So this is about oxytocin, and oxytocin is synthesized in the hypothalamus and released into the blood via the induction of the pituitary gland. So we have seen 3 sex hormones: estrogen and progesterone in the female system, testosterone in the male system, and apart from that, 3 hormones: dopamine, which is a motivation and reward chemical, serotonin is a happiness hormone, and oxytocin, a bonding hormone. These are all synthesized from hypothalamus, amygdala, and thalamus, which interacts with the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, inducing the motor and sensory neuron, making an individual to respond to the environment in a positive way. And the next one is the endorphins. So endorphin is called as the pain reliever chemical. It is actually a neurotransmitter chemical. Endorphin, you can see there, it relieves stress, it relieves pain, it gives a feeling of euphoria and pleasure. And our mind works at the principle of pleasure. It doesn't want pain at any cost. And here I want to state about the pain and pleasure principle. I'm not going to into the Freudian theory, but actually this pain and this endorphins are synthesized from the central nervous system, transmitted via the neuronal system to the brain. And on receiving endorphins, the pituitary gland, the spinal cord, and other nervous system together will respond to a stimuli. Right. And this endorphin, which is actually synthesized in the pituitary gland and sent via the spinal cord and central nervous system. And as I said, the endorphins gives you a feeling of pleasure. Whenever I do something which gives me happiness, it may be a loud singing, it may be spending with family, it may be music, listening to music, or singing, or gardening, or cooking, whatever it is. Whenever there is proper endorphin concentration, which is a resultant of a feeling of pleasure, the sense of pain is being discarded by the brain. And often, say for example, if I'm having a headache for a longer duration of time, what will I do? May I ask this question to a participant? If you have a headache for continuously 3 hours, what will you do? Can any 2 or 3 participants answer? If you feel a headache for 2 to 3 hours continuously, what will you do?
I go to sleep, ma'am.
Okay. Any other answers?
Participants, you can unmute your mic and give the answers. Yeah, you can unmute and give the answer.
So take medicine, take strong coffee, apply balm, okay? Drink hot water. Anything else? Relax methods. Okay, Dolo 650. Who's that? Uma. And can you connect me to her, Veena?
Ma'am.
Who is Miss Uma? Can you connect me to Miss Uma? Can I talk to her for a moment?
Yes, ma'am. Uma, ma'am.
You hear good music, deep breath. Okay. Is she there?
Yes, yes. Uma, ma'am.
Driving car. Okay. Okay, we'll come back to her later. Probably we'll continue. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So many of you have answered that you will take medicines. You know what these medicines will do? They don't actually kill your pain. They go and mask the sensory part of the brain, that is the hypothalamus and the thalamus. So hypothalamus and thalamus will never receive any stimuli of pain from the external environment. It is masked. So you don't feel a pain. Once the effect of the medicine is over, again you feel the pain. So is this the right way? Is the question that I should ask me. One second. Okay. So we give preference to the feelings of pleasure, and endorphins are responsible for it. Many of you have answered coffee, tea, pranayama, all that. And I would suggest breathing exercises, pranayama and meditation. And as I said earlier, some relaxation techniques would help in the synthesis of endorphins. So hereafter, please don't take Dolo 650 along with a hot coffee or tea. That's not the remedy, because for the interim time, taking a cup of coffee will induce serotonin and dopamine in your system, giving a feeling of happiness. But it is very temporary. Once the effect of coffee is over, your serotonin and dopamine level will come down. The endorphins, again, it is not there. Again, you will feel the pain. So it is better to identify a long-term or a permanent relaxation methodology to have pleasure. And that's why a relaxation technique or a relaxation method, following it daily, spending time for yourself, at least for 10 minutes, will give you feelings of pleasure by maintaining the endorphin levels. And as I said before, laughter is another good way of generating endorphins. So at least take 30 minutes to pursue your passion, to do some interesting things, exercise, watch funny stuff, go out, but not now. But whenever you have time, have a good walk, spend time with good people, happy people, so that you maintain your dopamine levels. Right, and the final one is the epinephrine and norepinephrine. Next slide, next slide. Okay. Here you can see the interaction between serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Epinephrine and norepinephrine is the hormone synthesized from the adrenal gland. So you can call it as either adrenaline or noradrenaline. You know, adrenaline is a hormone of fight, flight, and fright. It is a fear hormone which makes you determined to face the situation, avoid the situation, or run away from the situation. And as I said earlier, within a split second, when the adrenaline rush is at the higher end, you tend to make unwanted decisions. Sometimes I palpitate, my heart beats, goes up, I sweat a lot, my throat gets dry. These are all the symptoms that my adrenaline is under rush. And immediately noradrenaline or norepinephrine has to come for the rescue. Until it is not synthesized, I will maintain my anxiety level or my tension or my depression, whatever it is, at a higher level. And in the longer duration of time, that will have physical implications in my body. So here, serotonin, we have seen all the individual function of this. You can see dopamine determines the thought process. Whenever there is good concentration of dopamine, I can think clearly. I can make a rational decision which can be accepted by others as well. And here's the point, I agree to disagree. I accept others with all weaknesses, and I have good appetite. I take balanced diet. I go according with my intuition, what my insight says, what my insight teaches me. And so my thought process is good. My physical condition is good. My behavior is good whenever I have good levels of dopamine and oxytocin. Serotonin, I have again good sleep and I have a sense of satisfaction. I learn something new throughout my life. I have good memory. I'm ready to unlearn if there is unnecessary things in my life. I'm very careful in receiving information, and I don't get any negative thoughts. I don't make any negative self-talk. You can see there. And I don't get easily tired. I don't fall prey for anxiety or aggression, and I avoid suicidal ideations. So whenever there is proper concentration of serotonin, my perception level is good, my satisfactory level is good, my learning and memory recollection, memory reproduction is also good. And whenever there is adrenaline rush or epinephrine rush, immediately